Denette Schaer with the Broken for Better podcast.
And we are a marriage ministry that believes that you can pick up something today to make your relationship better. Enjoy.
Welcome back. We are Kurt and Denette Schaer with Broken for Better. Just two best friends having a conversation, and we're glad you joined us. Today, we're going to be talking about...
Let's talk about sex.
The S word, sex. That's right. Thank you for the song intro. That was right on point.
I would sing it.
It was
Wait,
good.
would that help this conversation?
He's excited about this conversation. But before
Let's
we start...
talk about...
Before we start the conversation, I want to say thank you to our monthly supporters. We could not do this without you. We couldn't do the marriage intensives or the marriage workshops that we do. We couldn't do all of the marriage coaching sessions we do, the podcasts that we do, and even just partnering with local churches to, just try to breathe health and love into marriages and families. So We're just thankful for you and all of our monthly supporters. Before we get started also...
Let's hurry up and talk about sex.
Okay, I know. A great night to actually have sex would be at our prom because it's a no-guilt prom.
No, it's not have sex at our prom.
Not at the prom.
No,
not at the
prom.
prom. I'm just saying come to our prom. It's a no-guilt prom for those of you that are married. Oh, I put it with this finger. Those that are married, you can go to prom. You don't have to have a curfew. Come join us. We're going to dance the night away. All proceeds go to helping further the ministry, and we are just excited.
Yes.
Yeah, we're excited. The tickets are going. People are signing up. They're sending us pictures of what they're going to wear, and it's going to be
which is awesome.
So
actually.
much fun.
Yeah.
Yes. So
now can we talk about sex?
Now to the subject at hand. We're going to talk about sex, and we're going to say the word sex, guys. It's not going to be intimacy. It's going to be sex. Because so many times, I think when we hear this subject broached in churches or in conferences, I think mainly because there could be little ears in the room, so that I can totally understand. But a lot of times we'll talk about the word intimacy instead of sex. And beautiful word. There's definitely intimacy that's that goes along with the act of sex, but they're very different. I think when a woman hears the word intimacy, at least all women are different, obviously, but from my perspective, most of the women that I know, when they think of intimacy, they think of emotional connection and closeness. And when a guy thinks of intimacy, typically, again, not to just stereotype everyone, they usually think of physical. So today we're going to be very, very pointed. We're going to be talking about the physical aspects of sex. Are you excited?
Yes, but I think sex and intimacy, even in my mind, are two different things.
I know because you're a man. That's what I'm saying. I think often a woman associates it with one way and a man associates it with something different.
Like intimacy, I've definitely okay, this is going to be kind of like an intimacy. So then I'm going to have to cuddle and hold.
You sound so excited.
No, I'm just saying when you're, you're like, hey, can we have intimacy tonight? I'm like, oh, okay, I need to.
Can we have intimacy tonight?
I don't know that you've ever actually said that. I don't know. But it's just like when you hear sex, it's like, I don't know. Sex is just different than intimacy to me.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Let's talk about sex.
Let's talk about sex. Okay. So what is one of the number one things we do marriage coaching. We've sat with over the years numbers of couples. What is one of the top things you have heard behind closed doors that you hear couples either complain about or want to talk about when it comes to the subject of sex and their relationship?
Yeah, very, and the two go hand in hand, actually. Time is, we never have time for that. Okay, so lives are moving so fast that by the time they get to an end of a day, there's no time for those two to connect because they got to hurry up and do it all over again. So time is a huge thing. And the other thing is the desires. I think, for a lot of men out there, it's this perceived notion of what sex is. And so when we do have sex, I want it to be like what's in my head of sex, what I've seen, what I've viewed, what I think is right, what I like. It's a very selfish act. And so what I see is we don't have time to do it, or two, we don't do it the way I like. And so therefore I don't want to do it.
And I think from the woman's perspective, definitely the sex drive can be polarizing. But, not only that, I think a lot of times from a lot of females' perspective, they're like, it doesn't do anything for me. Because maybe they don't have a healthy conversation about how to meet the needs of the other person. But a lot of times, you know, especially if the woman is just running and doing a lot of different things, they just feel like this isn't something that does anything for me, you know?
And I think this is another one of those topics, Dee, that I feel like it's hysterical to me that we refrain from these conversations.
Right. And they're so needed.
You know, it's funny. It's not funny. It's heartbreaking, honestly, that a couple won't talk about desires, needs, and wants, but they'll go find those being visually stimulating or those conversations or what. They'll go find those avenues to talk about it somewhere else, which ultimately could potentially lead to horrific behaviors if not kept in check. And it's like, here they are, two people doing life together, don't want to have the conversation that would make it better.
Yeah.
But we'll go talk to friends and watch TV and read books and articles on what it should be or how it could be or how to, instead of just going, hey, can you tell me the things that, like, what do you like when we have sex?
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to say that right now.
What do you? No, I'm kidding.
Well, I like, it's like, but these conversations we've had, looked at each other and gone, listen, we want to make the most of this time that we get to be together. So how do I please you? And what do you like? And what are the things you don't like? Before we've talked about it in past pods of having that stoplight approach.
Yeah.
What are those red areas that are off limits? Like, I do not like that. Don't do that. It turns me off and it ruins the mood.
Yeah.
What are those yellows that, like, hey, when the time is right and maybe all stars are aligned and it's been a great, maybe we can broach the subject. And then what are the green areas? It's like, I don't care if we did this every single time. It's green light. That means go, It's like, we got to have more of these conversations because ultimately, I truly believe it is crazy how the enemy will send people at you to have conversations outside boundaries.
Yeah.
Just because we won't have the conversation inside boundaries.
And we're all 2 clicks away from, like, meeting that need somewhere else, right? I mean, men and women. And I think more often, guys are usually more attracted to the physical, whatever, but men and women both are, and both struggle with that area, especially in today's day and age. But I think what's crazy to me is a lot of times, men may go and gravitate towards looking at something or finding something somewhere that meets this need, and women may go and look at something that's meeting a totally different need. And we've got these 2 different platforms, where women are looking at things that, like, the Hallmark channels and the things that are, like, meeting that intimacy. If he would just talk to me this way and romanticize me this way, then possibly, then they always cut right as the scene. They go to kiss, they cut end scene, and then the guys usually are typically wanting to look at the exact opposite, but we're going and seeking out these things that are meeting or scratching this itch and giving us this need that's met, instead of just coming to a place where we talk to our spouse like, hey, I really desire for our relationship to look like this, or these are things I want.
Yeah,
in our relationship.
I'm thankful that we're at a place, we had to walk through a lot of hell to get here.
Yeah.
And this topic, honestly, for us has been a sketchy topic for a lot of years.
Oh, really hard. Yeah.
Just because of my past and failures, and then false expectations and false beliefs and all these kind of craziness. This has been a really rough subject. So I'm thankful now it's like we finally have gotten healthy in an area to be able to go, hey, this is kind of what I'm looking for, or this is kind of what I need at this moment. But it took a lot to get there. Like, you can't just start right off the bat going, hey, I'm going to have this first conversation. Hey, this is what I need tonight, girl. Let's go to Pound Town. That's not.
Oh, my gosh. Don't ever use that word again.
Okay, sorry. I'm saying that's not sex 101 talk.
That is not romantic, in case you're wondering. It's not romantic.
But that's not sex 101 talk. You might. Or 201 or 3, whatever that's like. But, like, you've got to be able to have conversations from both ends. And again, it's dying to self.
Yeah.
It's laying down selfish desires. It's laying down my needs, my wants to go, hey, how do I serve the other? Now, 2 people have to be doing this, right? That's what two people are doing, hey, you're in a place where going, hey, listen, I want to die to myself. And so tonight I'm going to make this about him. Or, man, you know what? Tonight, I know that for the last 2 times, man, it has been unbelievable things that I wanted to do and places I wanted to go and be. And so it's like, now I'm going to make this about her. So I'm going to schedule this whole thing and I'm going to make the night about you. And we'll but that's two people that are desiring a healthy sex life, desiring to be close together on all levels. And so now it's going, okay, so how do we both most do that? And I think for a fear of mine is that couples have gotten to a place where they feel they can't have that conversation. It's too long gone. It's too out of touch.
And we've heard that so many times.
All the time.
When would you say is a beneficial or a healthy time to have that conversation? I think sitting in the seat that we sit in often, we'll see couples that in one breath are talking about divorce, and in the other breath are saying, well, we just have no intimacy or we have no sex life.
Yeah.
And you're talking about polarizing subjects, right? So when is a healthy time to have that conversation with your spouse, in your opinion?
Seasons of conversations is everything. And if you're in if communication hasn't been well, you haven't spent any quality time together, you don't know what's going on in the other person's world, that's probably not the time to sit down and go, oh, hey, and by the way, we don't have sex enough. Well, sex is a byproduct. I mean, that's an action.
Correct.
That's not the thing that keeps you together and holds you together. I mean, something could happen medically and that could be out of the relationship tomorrow. And so are you deep enough that even without that? So for me, I'm always triggered when I hear, hey, we're not doing well. Okay, great. Let's talk about it. Well, we just don't have sex. Well, no, what's the deeper problem?
Right.
Where we have insecurities? Where do we have fears? Where is somebody not feeling good about themselves? And so because they don't feel good about themselves now, they don't want to give themselves to somebody else.
Right.
They don't want to get most vulnerable. Or, man, are they deeper seated? I feel insecurity. I feel fear. I feel like something's between us right now. I don't like what's happening with your work or how I don't like all these things. And so I can't vulnerably get there. It's a deeper seated thing. So when intimacy becomes a problem, look, it's something I long for. Like when we're healthy and we're right and, man, we're clicking on all cylinders and things are good, like, I want that and you want that and we desire that. And so that's great. So when it's not that way, find out the why.
There's a reason.
Why is there a disconnect? Because it hasn't always been like this. Where's the disconnect? And then be big enough to stare the disconnect in the face and deal with it.
Yeah. I think for us, when we look back at the unhealthiest times, like you've already kind of hinted on in our marriage, definitely sex wasn't a top priority for me, but we weren't in a healthy place. So trust wasn't there. We had lack of trust. But I think because, you're two broken people bringing all of these things, all these baggage, all the different things that you bring into a marriage, for you, having a physical relationship with me was so important that even in seasons that possibly it was off the table. Maybe I, had just had a baby or whatever. For you, it was very difficult to feel close to me because for you, sex, when I say sex, not just intimacy, sex was so important to you to feel close. And I did not understand that because I was coming at it from a totally different perspective. And so there are seasons in your life when you do have to sacrifice and die to self. I'm not talking about misusing the other person or not caring for their needs, but I know that there were seasons that you didn't do well with, responding to me because of the seasons we were walking through, or I didn't respond well to you because I didn't realize how much of a need it was for our relationship either, if that makes sense. I just said it again. I always say that.
I think for me, in hearing you say this, it really triggers in me the fact that I didn't know the difference of intimacy and sex. To me, intimacy wasn't a thing. That's not what I grew up knowing or watching or seeing or being a part of. I don't want to be intimate. Let me have sex because in that there's a momentary gratification of feeling of going, everything is good.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I strived for that momentary, everything is good. But then on the heels of that, everything's not good.
Yeah.
So when I come to find out, okay, what is intimacy? What does intimacy look like? Non-physical intimacy. Like, how do I just be intimate in your thoughts and in your feelings and in your emotions? And how do I love you on bad days and love you on good days? And like truly learning the wholeness of an intimate relationship. Well, once you learn that, now it fuels the physical portion of it, because I feel so much more connected to you emotionally. I feel much more connected personally. When you're off, I'm off. You know what I mean? Right. It's like now I see it in a different light. So it's not just this momentary gratification. It's going, hey, listen, I feel so close to you. Like this is like the cherry on top, if you will.
You know, what's crazy is how we came into our relationship. So you came in with this, tainted view of what sex was because of what you had allowed, to witness and be a part of and all those things. I came in from this really strict religious background and was so adamant of, purity culture in the 90s was so big. And I'm thankful that is like our story. We were technically pure, Technically, yeah.
What does that mean?
Okay, we're not going to give descriptives, but
we didn't have sex before marriage.
We didn't have sex before marriage.
That's pure.
That's pure. But we did other things that I'm saying weren't the best heart and motive, for sure.
Oh.
Anyhow, I digress. What I was going to say was we came into our marriage with two totally different worldviews. So I came in thinking everything was bad, everything was wrong. You put a gold ring on my finger, and now all of a sudden it's a free-for-all. Like that was very difficult for my mind to like transition. And it was so hard for me to not feel like sex was dirty. And like this freedom of knowing, okay, it is okay for me to totally enjoy my spouse. And it's okay for my spouse to totally enjoy me.
Preach.
But without feeling like I was being compared to anyone or anything.
It's a very interesting, and I think probably more couples go in that way than we would even realize. Like you live your whole life waiting for this one night. Then you run the craziness of a wedding. You run the craziness of that schedule and what is that? All that nonsense, right?
The whole week leading up.
The whole week leading up. You finally get married. Then you go to a room, and what you've lived your entire life, 19 years, now you're supposed to turn that switch off and now become
sexy.
You dress the part.
Yeah.
But it's like emotionally, can you get there? And for me on the other side, it's like, this was all my life. And now I finally been waiting 3 years to be with, you. And it's like, oh, this didn't go how any of us planned.
Yeah.
And it starts you off on this trajectory of a lot of head games and mind games. And I think that's where, that's some of the unhealth. There was a bunch of unhealth on my part, but that's more unhealth that we didn't have healthy conversations.
Yeah, we
didn't talk about that then. Now we can talk about it now. Right. But we didn't talk about it then. And so you just learned all these things of, but why didn't we talk about it? My family didn't talk about sex. It was bad and taboo in the church. It's like, you just don't talk about that. You go talk about anything else you want. I'll teach you how to balance a checkbook and, change your tire on your car and change your brakes. But meanwhile, this thing that you're going to be doing for the rest of your life and making babies.
Teaching your children about.
We can't talk about that.
Yeah.
And it was like, man, it's a misguided thing in the church. We need to talk about it. Here's the thing. You have to talk about it because the world's going to talk about it. So you're either going to learn from the world and what you hear, or you're going to have real honest conversations with your spouse and come to a place that goes, okay, how do we honor God in our marriage through this act and this gift that he gave us of intimacy? So I just think, for me, I love that we talk about that. I love that we talk about hurdles. I love that we talk about good times and bad times, because I just want you to know, like, you're not in this alone, isolated category.
Yeah.
We all are in a place that it's a journey we're having to learn. And I'm thankful that you and I are at a place where we can have, and it's still not easy. Sometimes there's still difficult conversations to talk about.
Yeah.
But we can at least have them in love, and then we come out better for it.
And I think, when going back to that subject of when the conversation is good, obviously you need to be on the same page, but having the conversation in the heat of the moment, like, oh, we never, or we always, we talk about not using absolutes, but also just knowing, when let's say you're just in the mood and for whatever reason, I've had a hard day and whatever, that moment probably isn't the best time to sit down and let's have a conversation about sex. Because we're in two different places. One person's maybe insecure, heated, or hurt because their partner wasn't in the mood. The other person's frustrated because their partner is. It's like scheduling a time. Like, hey, let's sit down and talk. Let's go out to dinner and just sit and talk. Let's have like an intentional conversation about, the bedroom. Like, how am I pleasing you? I think coming with a way that like, hey, how can I do better with this, or this to help set the mood? And then coming with a thing of, hey, I really desire this in the bedroom. I think coming with something, hey, I want to put something in and how can you help me? I think that's really, really, really a healthy way to do it.
Yeah.
Not just, I need more of this,
Yeah, 100%. That's going to seem attacking on either side.
Yeah.
And obviously this is two spouses that are willing to go, all right, let's have a conversation. You may be in a situation where a spouse isn't having that conversation.
Yeah.
And I just would encourage you, don't throw your hands up and don't give up or don't quit fighting. Keep doing the things that you know to do on your end and love well and create moments and look for times to have conversations as well. Be a praying spouse, because truly, just as he can change who I am as a person, he can definitely change wrong thoughts and wrong mindsets as to what I have towards sex. And so allow God to even get in that area of your life.
Which leads me to the question on seasons. So we kind of hinted on it, but there are different seasons in every marriage. There's seasons, there's the honeymoon season, there's little children, then there's teen children that are very aware of how things happen in the home and what's happening in the home. There's empty nest season. There's seasons of loss, like we're walking through. And so there's highs and lows when it comes to our sex life. Like, what would you encourage the couple about seasons, or how to view those as a couple?
Yeah, those are, that's probably where I've had to grow the most in. Because for the longest time, it was, man, this is what I want. This is what I desire. So this is what I'm going to have. You being in a season that wasn't available didn't compute in my mind. I took it as, for some reason, you didn't want me, or I was less than, or I didn't look the way I should, or something like that. You know what I mean? So I really took it as a personal thing. And not as a, wait, hold on a second, okay, what are seasons? So now, especially this last one, having to learn, okay, how do we function as a couple? But then in the midst of this craziness, there's going to be days it has zero to do with me. It's just mentally, you're not in a place that's conducive to us doing that. And so now it's on me to care enough about you to not shut the door, but really go, hey, how do I love you most in this season? And that's a battle. I mean, that's something that's a cognitive, conscious effort to be able to go, this is not about me as much as I desire and want sex right now. This is not about me. I now have to lay that down to help you carry what you're carrying. And that's, I just don't think, for many years, I didn't operate that way. And I don't know if most people that we deal with, that's not the MO. The coaching sessions are, this is what I want. And it's kind of like, it's almost like, it's not this, it's transactional. You do for me, and then I'll do for you.
Yeah.
And that's not a relationship. That's a transaction, like a supermarket.
Yeah.
I want this tomato. Here's $2. Okay, great. That's a transaction. Marriage doesn't operate like that. Marriage is not a transaction. This is the ebb and flow of, I need to come to where you are. Oh, you can come to where I am. Wow, this is a season we got to stop. This is a season we can go. Like, it's just so fluid.
I think that question, what can I do to best love you today, is so disarming. Like, it's life-giving to your spouse. What can I do to serve you well today? And it then in turn requires a response. Like, it's not just I love you, right? It's what can I do to best serve you today? And it allows your spouse to realize, okay, my spouse has my best intentions at heart. Like they care for my needs. And in turn, it makes you desire to meet their needs as well. But I think no matter who we sit in front of, we'll constantly encourage every single person, every single couple to die to self. And there have been many times in hard seasons where, because of how my brain works and I'm not capable of compartmentalizing, there have been many times that, we've met each other's needs, but it hasn't been initiated, you know what I mean, by the person that, like, it's like, I know that this is what you need right now to feel close to me. And so I want you to feel close to me as well. And that's a form of sacrifice. It's not like you taking advantage. That's a totally different subject. That should not happen in any marriage relationship. But it's a matter of me saying, hey, how do I meet your needs? I really want to feel close to you physically today. Yep. That can go both and. I think in every couple, there's usually two different partners. We always talk about how opposites attract, but even in our physicality, a lot of times opposites attract. Every now and then, you'll find a unicorn where both of them are just on the same page, but a lot of times it doesn't happen. And so in that same breath, you'll have one partner that usually can't compartmentalize. Everything is intertwined, which is me. Like every way I'm feeling emotionally, whether it's a grief day or a bad friend situation or whatever, it all encompasses my heart. And so I just, until everything feels right in the world, my brain can't even. And then your brain is so compartmentalized. It's like, this will make me feel better. This happened and this sucked, but oh well. Like this will make me feel. It's just two totally different veins of thought. And neither one are wrong. It's just how God created us totally differently. And I think we learn from each other and how we both respond to different things. But there's usually two different partners in every relationship.
Yeah. I'll tell you, the seasons is another crazy one for me, just only because I think about early on, like when you say sacrifice, think about early on when you would ask, hey, do we need to be close? Is that like, are you feeling distant from me? This was early on.
Yeah. And
I remember the inside answer was yes, but the outside was, well, if you don't want it, I don't want it. And I would leave those conversations angry because you didn't, like, you were willing, but you didn't want it.
Yeah.
And so because you didn't really want it, I'm not going to sit there with somebody just laying there.
I'm like, I might have been up nursing a child all night last night, buddy.
But now I think I've grown so much that it's not a matter of if you don't want it, I don't want it. It truly is a love enough for you to go when you do have those moments where you go, hey, I'm willing. I know we haven't been close and I think we need to be close. Now it's not even a selfish thing of mine that I'm going, no, I can, like, we can wait. I'm not, please, we can get close in other ways. We don't have to do that. And that's a huge growth on my end because I didn't see it that way for so long. Everything was so personal. If you didn't want sex, there was reason why, and I was angry, and now it was going to be, it just was so bad. And learning, wow, just what are those seasons? And that it got. This last one has been this last year has been totally different. But everything doesn't just stop. Like the world keeps going, our relationship keeps going, our marriage is still happening. And so there's certain things, but you have to learn like the ebbs and flows of seasons and just being willing to go, man, this is not about me. It's more about us. And I want the health of us.
Yeah. I think another healthy conversation to have with your spouse is strengths and weaknesses when it comes to sex, which I know is kind of a crazy idea. But when you think about like all of our relationships are built around strengths and weaknesses, some of my strengths and weaknesses, I know some of your strengths and weaknesses, like I'm more messy than you are. I think more with my creative brain, which sometimes can be a whole hot mess, and you're more black and white, can be a little bit more OCD. Like we have these strengths and we have these weaknesses. I'm a people pleaser. You're, more matter of fact. It's just how God created us. But then when we take that same concept into the bedroom, we don't talk about strengths and weaknesses. And I'm not meaning just like acts. I'm talking about there's certain things that make us strong or make us weak when it comes to the things we want to reveal or not reveal or respond to or not respond to or allow or not allow. And I think those are healthy conversations to say, you know, I don't feel, there's so many women that I've talked to that just say, I don't feel comfortable in my own skin, or I don't feel like I measure up sexually. So instead of having a conversation saying, hey, am I pleasing you in this way? Or does this do anything for you? We just shy away from it altogether out of insecurity on how we perform or what we do to please our spouse. You know,
those are very healthy conversations and ones that have to be had. But again, don't race to level 500. You know, I think when you're at a place that intimacy and sex is non-existent or it's not happening, there's further conversations as to why.
Right.
What got us here? Before you just start telling me what you don't like, let's start talking about, hey, why are we here? And many times you will find that there's deeper problems than the intimacy problem. There's deeper situations that we need to walk through. And so I just encourage you, like, it all goes back to communication. Be willing to communicate. If that's in the bedroom, tell them the things you like. Like, girl, I like that. Yeah, keep doing, like, do that, you know? But you also got to be willing to hear, hey, I didn't like that. We love hearing what they like. Oh, girl, okay, I'm the man. I'll just keep doing that. But then, hey, I didn't like that. Oh, now all of a sudden we take it personal.
Right.
Oh, what, you didn't? Oh, what, did I not do it? And now it's a personal thing. So I just, man, be so fluid and open-minded and open-handed with your sex life. Like, God gave this as a gift. Enjoy it. Make it something that you both desire, but be willing to talk about it. Like, man, let's discuss the things that work and don't work. Like, girl, you want it more freaky in the bed? Good, talk about it. What does that look like for you?
You look at the book of Solomon, right? The book, Song of Solomon. And I think when I was doing some research on that book, at first I'm kind of like, okay, homeboy legitimately he was a sex addict. Like, he had like how many concubines, all of that. So then when I read that book, I'm like, why is he the one that's talking about sex in the bedroom? Like,
because he had more of it than anyone.
No, I literally was like mind blown that it appears in that book. It's actually a woman that he couldn't have that falls in love with a farmhand, not him with all his money and whatever, and is writing about pursuing this spouse that becomes her true love. And I think it's crazy that the person that had like all of these interactions romantically with all these women puts in his book this interaction that he never obtained. And that was true closeness with his spouse, or with a spouse, not his spouse. True closeness with a spouse, because both were pursuing each other and the things that they desired and the things that they liked. And you want to talk about a steamy novel, that's pretty steamy. I mean, she had goat hair and stuff. I mean, it was... That's not
steamy. Maybe for somebody out there, I guess.
You like me with goat hair?
No, I don't.
Our teeth have white pillars or something like that. I don't remember. Yeah.
I just like the breast verses, like all the
towers of breasts. Well, but what I'm saying is, like, it's crazy to me that that's like, even this king that had everything at his disposal, right? Every image, if you will, at his disposal, was longing for that true love connection, that true sex life, that true intimacy where both go hands in hand, and it's not either or,
Yeah. I mean, even me just saying that, like, oh, I like the breast. And I remember sitting in church and flipping through those and seeing the breast and like laughing like that. Like, aww, how funny is that that's in the Bible, right? They're talking about breast. And it's like that, you grow up on that. You grow up with that thought process, and then it just creeps into, I must never be able to have this conversation. It's kind of always funny. I can only talk about it with my boys, and then having the conversation with your boys, because I was never going to do that. Like, I wanted my boys to, like, we're going to have this conversation. I want it to be healthy and whole. And then even getting in that conversation was like, oh, get me out of this conversation. This is making him sick and me sick, and it's just, I hope that we can, I think it's a tactic of the enemy, again, to isolate people, to get them on an island, to think they can't talk about something, to let it deteriorate the infrastructure of a marriage.
Yeah.
When all that could be fixed with healthy communication.
Okay, so speaking of talking about it with your kids, I know we're talking about sex and that's kind of a weird thing, but how did you approach the subject? Because someone might be watching and thinks, how do I approach the subject? When do I broach the subject with my kids? How did you or us, I tapped you in because I'm like, listen,
There wasn't no us.
I gave birth to 3 boys. You get to have the conversation with 3 boys.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how that played out. Here's the one thing that I've since grabbed a hold on. I had my conversations before I got this, but this is what I would encourage you with now. Someone is teaching your child.
You're right.
It's either the kid at school, it's the things they're seeing on TV. Someone is teaching your child. They are students of life. They are learning. So either you're going to teach them or somebody else will. You get to control what you teach them. You can't control what other people teach them. Now, that being said, for me, it was simply going, hey, fellas, like guys and girls are different. And it's the craziest thing because I always ask the question. I'm like, hey, so boys and girls are different. Yeah, that's right. You got a thing. They don't. Yeah, okay, that's good. So where do you think babies come from? And like 2 of them were like, I think kissing. And you want to get out right there and be like, yep, kissing. Don't ever kiss. We're out. Okay. But having to tackle that a little bit farther to go, well, no, it's not necessarily kissing.
Right.
And walking that out. But I wanted it always to be a fluid conversation. Now, the reality is I told them very young before they like middle school or before they got into middle school.
Right.
They hit middle school and now they're hearing it from outside sources. So now they're asking me questions like, hey, remember that time we talked about what does this word mean? And they're asking me about these certain things that I would have never told them about. Like, seriously, when your 7th grader comes home and is like, so what's a blowjob? You're like, okay, we just went to like Sex 301 in a hurry.
Yeah.
And
you had to have like, I think 3 or 4. And I was like, okay, time for 2.0.
Yeah.
It's for 3.0. I'm like, oh my gosh.
But here's the thing. I kept it like I wanted them to ask me. I don't know that I really wanted to answer the question. And they definitely didn't want the answer.
But they did come to you.
Yes.
At least as far as we know. Most.
Then they hit the age where they don't have to talk to you about anything else. They've got it all figured out. And they don't even want to have those conversations. Right. So it's like, teach them early, keep the gate open. We used to joke around. They knew like they had a mom and dad who were intimate together. They don't want to hear about it. Oh, that's gross. But the reality is I want them to know like, hey, that's a continual part of our relationship. Like we love each other and this is what loving people do. They do this kind of stuff. And so, I never wanted to shut the door, even if the harder questions came that I didn't want to answer. I was thankful that I got to answer them because if I didn't teach them what that was, somebody was going to tell them what that was. And I'd much rather it be me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And teaching them to date well, and intentionally, I think that was important. And I think we tried to mimic that for them, that having a good sex life was important. But how you got there was also really important. So maybe for the person that's watching that says, okay, our sex life is absolutely horrific. What can I take away from this today? What would be your point of advice or wisdom?
Buy a pole for the bedroom. No, that wouldn't be good.
Yeah, super healthy.
Listen, here's where I will, and we say this about everything, and we stand by this, and we believe this. What you have today isn't what you have to endure tomorrow. But you have to be willing to do something different today to get something different tomorrow. So again, it's back to the question, why? Even if you sat in front of marriage coaches and said, okay, our intimate life is horrible, the first thing they're going to ask is, why? What got us to this place? You're going to find out it's not about the intimacy. It's not about the sex act. Something is deterring you from getting to that place. And so for me, I want to go, hey, what's gotten you there? And let's go back to that point. Well, we don't communicate. Okay, start by having conversation. Take walks. Hand in hand, judge-free zone where you just get to encourage your spouse. Start there. You have to start somewhere. You can't just go, well, it's always been this way. It's always going to be this way. And so what? Because eventually over a period of time, you'll throw your hands up and call it quits. It's not worth fighting for anymore.
Yeah.
I'm always going to be the one to say it is worth fighting for. Be willing to do the hard things. Okay, our intimacy is terrible. How do we fix it? What do we start by doing? Let's start by having a conversation. Let's mark the calendar. I think marking the calendar to have sex is crazy, right? Because why would I circle every single day? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, if we bought a calendar, and this is what I always thought, like, because we've heard this before, buy a calendar, circle the red days so that on a red day, like, I'm like, she would literally come home to be 31 circles. Why would I do that? So, for me, it's not going 0 to 100, but it is going, look, maybe you do need to circle the day. 2 weeks from now, we're going to have intimacy. Now, what do I do in the next 2 weeks to plant seed and to foster that relationship so that when that red circle comes, it is on like Donkey Kong?
And just to clarify, we do not have sex every day.
We could.
We could, but we don't. But I will say this. I think another thing I would want to point out is do not compare your relationship with anyone else. We personally know couples that had, from outside looking in, amazing sex lives that didn't have, like, that was their only.
We'll tell you about it. 4 to 6 days a week.
Yeah, 6 days a week, 7 days a week. And I remember thinking, man, because we, especially at that point in our lives, weren't in a close, we weren't close. We weren't healthy in our marriage. And so we definitely weren't having sex 6 days a week, So then you end up comparing, man, if only this, then I could be this. And there's couples that only use sex as a way to be close, and there's nothing deep going on underneath that, and that's not healthy either. That literally is just so superficial. It's both and.
And there's no law. I mean, there's definitely no law, because if we had set in stone that our marriage would thrive on sex 5 days a week, and then you hit a season like this one that we're in, well, now I've got to wrestle with, not only are we not intimate like we said we were, now I got to deal with my own grief and trauma. It's just loss and hurt on top of lot. Like, you can't be that way.
No.
Sex it's a very fluid thing that as you're more intimately, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, you'll be more intimately physically. It just is what it is. That's the way God created it. And so take it upon yourself and do whatever you can to fuel emotional, spiritual health so that physical side just follows in suit.
Yeah. The more you are totally vulnerable with your spouse, and there's nothing hidden, there's no secrets, the more you will want to be totally intimate and sexual with your spouse, because there's nothing inhibiting the two of you.
Amen.
You look at the story of Adam and Eve, and the first thing they did was what? Hide. Because trust had been broken. And so they hid their physical nature because of sin. And so I think it doesn't even have to be sin, but when we're keeping things from our spouse and we're not totally transparent before them, we're less likely to be fully exposed in front of them.
That's so good.
So,
and we like fully exposed in front of us.
Some of us more than others. But yeah. So be fully exposed. Get intimate with your spouse. Do the thing. Have fun. Don't hold back. I want to challenge you, if you're watching this, set a date. Love each other. Pick it together. Don't just one of you pick it. That might be an issue. It's like just one person circles the calendar. Pick it together. Find a way. Find time. Get a babysitter if you're in that stage of life. We had so many times that we would get a hotel 2 miles down the street because we had 3 kids that were in the house and we needed a night alone. Do what you got to do, but keep each other.
Now we have 2 kids in the house and we still get a hotel down the street.
We still do every now and then. But not for those reasons. Our daughter-in-law was like, not for those reasons. Anyhow, get a hotel room, have fun, keep your spouse the main thing. And just thank you for joining us. We're so thankful that you just pour into your marriage, love your spouse well. We're always honored that you allow us to speak into your life. Do you have anything you want to say before we close?
Just as we say all the time, if this has brought any smile to your face, comfort to your heart, encouragement to your relationship, man, just like and subscribe, support us as we continue to support this gift of marriage that God has given us, as we continue to do life coaching and as many as we can with couples that are all walking through these kind of things. So we are truly appreciative and thankful for your support.
That's right. And we'll see you next time.